This happened a few months ago. I was working late in my apartment, trying to meet a deadline for a graphic design project. It was one of those rainy nights, the kind that makes you feel cozy. But as I sat at my desk, engrossed in my work, things took a turn. The rain was pounding against the windows when I heard faint thumps from the empty bedroom across the hall. I thought it was just the building settling. I went back to my designs, dismissing it. But the thumps grew louder, echoing in my chest. I strained to listen and heard soft murmurings mixed with the thumping noise. It made me uneasy, but I kept telling myself it was my imagination. An hour passed, and the noises didn't stop. They became more insistent. My heart raced as I stood up and walked into the hallway. There was my cat, Luna, sitting by the closed bedroom door. Her fur bristled. She was usually calm but seemed fixated on that door. I called her name softly, but she didn't respond. It felt strange. Then a child's giggle broke through the murmurings. I froze. I lived alone and had never seen children in my building. It felt all wrong. I stood there trying to convince myself I was just tired. Maybe it was the storm. But the air felt heavy as I approached the door. The thumping started again, this time a series of loud knocks. I jumped back, my pulse quickening. I had never felt this kind of fear in my own home. Should I open the door? Maybe it was nothing. Still, something in me felt I couldn't ignore it. I reached for the door handle, hesitating. My breath was shallow. Then I heard a whisper, soft and indistinct. I pulled my hand back, wanting to scream but feeling frozen. I turned to leave, but Luna had suddenly moved. Her eyes were locked on something behind me. Then a child's voice asked, "Can I come in?" I turned around, but nobody was there. The rain kept pounding on the windows. I felt a chill run through me. My heart raced and I felt dizzy. I wanted to run, but my feet wouldn't move. I looked down the dark hallway and my mind raced with possible explanations. Maybe it was just the wind playing tricks. But the calmness in Luna's eyes turned to fear. She hissed and backed away. Then, as if on cue, the door creaked. The handle turned slowly, and my stomach dropped. I wanted to bolt to the safety of my office, but I was rooted to the spot. With a loud bang, the door flung open, and nothing stood there. Just emptiness. I was ready to scream when Luna darted past me. She bolted into the night, her tail tucked between her legs. I was left alone in the dark, my mind racing. I slowly backed away from the open door, heart pounding. What had just happened? Did I really hear that child's voice? Just when I thought I could breathe again, I heard the giggle once more, echoing in the hallway. My heart thudded like the rain against the glass. The night felt endless, and I realized, with a sinking dread, I was not alone. Somehow, I managed to gather enough courage to step away from the doorway. My instincts screamed at me to get away, to retreat, to call someone, but I felt anchored to the floor, as if the shadows had formed chains around my legs. I turned my back on the bedroom door, trembling, and headed toward the living room. I needed light. I needed a distraction. I stumbled toward the lamp beside my couch, and as I flicked it on, I allowed the warm glow to wash over me. The darkness receded slightly, but I still felt it lurking at the edges of my vision. But then I remembered Luna. She was usually my comfort in times like these. I grabbed my phone and dialed the number of the nearest animal hospital. It seemed foolish, but I needed to know if she had returned. I kept my eyes on the door, half expecting it to swing open at any moment. "Hi, is this a pet hospital?" I whispered into the receiver. I could barely hear the voice on the other end, but as they answered, the world spun a little. Caught in the haze of anxiety, I barely listened. I realized I had no idea what I wanted to ask. Suddenly the power flickered, and the lights dimmed momentarily. My breath caught in my throat. I glanced toward the hallway, dread pooling in my stomach. What if the lights went out completely? Before I could think more, my phone trembled in my hand. A text came through. A photo. I blinked and squinted at the screen in disbelief. It was a picture of my hallway, taken from inside my apartment. I could clearly see the faint outline of the door leading to the darkened bedroom. I hadn't sent that. Panic gripped me as I looked around. Who was in my home? I fumbled the phone, trying to read the sender's name. but it was from a number I didn't recognize, just a series of random digits. My heart raced faster. I had to get out. I was about to dash for the front door when I heard soft footsteps behind me. They were shuffling, light and hesitant, like small feet trying to sneak up on me. The giggle filled the air again, a cruel mimicry of childhood innocence. "Can I come in?" That same voice floated through the room. The hairs on my neck prickled. I swung my head around, but no one was there, just darkness waiting. I started toward the door, ready to bolt, when the footsteps stopped. Silence swallowed the room, and I could feel myself sweating, my heart pounding in my chest like a prisoner trying to escape. In the eerie quiet, a different sound began to filter through, a soft melodic humming, like a lullaby. It drifted from the now open bedroom door. Against every instinct in my body, I felt drawn to it. I walked forward, my heart racing and my breath shallow. I reached the threshold of the bedroom. The shadows danced in the corners, teasing and taunting me. I didn't want to look inside, yet my body betrayed me. I couldn't resist. That's when I saw it, a small faded toy sitting in the middle of the floor, a doll I had never owned. Then everything went dark. I woke up on the living room floor, my heart hammering against my ribs. The shadows seemed to press in around me, thick and suffocating. Panic set in as I fumbled for my phone. It was still in my hand, the screen illuminated by a sliver of light. I glanced around. Nothing appeared to have moved. The soft lullaby was gone, but I could still feel it in my bones. I pushed myself off the floor, my muscles stiff and cold. The lamp beside the couch flickered, casting strange shapes around the room. The unsettling feeling of being watched returned. I gripped my phone tightly, scanning the room once more. Then I remembered the doll. I had to see it. Avoiding the bedroom door was not an option. I steeled myself and took a step forward, my breath hitching as I approached the threshold. The darkness loomed, but I couldn't turn back now. I ventured into the darkened room, the air heavier here. As I stepped in, I could barely make out the doll still sitting in the middle of the floor. It looked more worn than I remembered. Was the fabric fraying? I grabbed a nearby flashlight, my hands shaking, and pointed it at the doll. It stared back with wide, glassy eyes, a smile stitched onto its face in a way that felt wrong. I knelt beside it, my curiosity piqued despite my fear. I noticed something tied around its wrist, some sort of thread. Tentatively, I reached over and untied it. The thread unraveled until a small note slipped free, fluttering to the floor. My pulse quickened. What could it say? I picked it up and my eyes widened. In shaky handwriting it read, "I'm near. Just turn around." My breath caught in my throat. The hair on my arms stood up. I didn't want to turn around. I couldn't. But the feeling of being watched intensified, and I finally turned slowly, inch by inch. The dim light from my flashlight barely penetrated the gloom, casting long shadows. And that's when I saw it. A figure standing in the corner, barely illuminated, its features unclear. "Can I play?" The voice chimed sweetly, sending chills down my spine. My fight-or-flight response kicked in hard. Everything inside me screamed to run, but my feet felt glued to the floor. As I backed away slowly, panic surged under my skin. The figure stepped forward into the light, and I realized it was a child. Long hair tangled and wild, eyes wide and gleaming with mischief. "I've been waiting for you," she said softly, the innocent tone twisted with something darker. Before I could utter a word, the lights flickered again and the room plunged into darkness. I stumbled back, heart racing, feeling my way along the wall toward the door. Then the humming returned, echoing in the dark, wrapping around me like a noose. "Don't leave yet," the girl whispered, her voice echoing in my ears. "We're just getting started." And that's when I felt it, a cold grip on my arm, pulling me back into the shadows. I gasped, the grip on my arm tightening. Panic surged through me, fueling a primal instinct to fight. I swung my arm wildly, desperate to break free, but the grip held firm. The girl's laughter filled the darkness, light and tinkling, yet laced with something sinister. "Stay and play," she urged, her voice echoing around the room like an eerie chant. I stumbled backward, the flashlight slipping from my hand and plunging us into deeper darkness. I could feel her presence close, a cold breath against my skin that sent chills racing down my spine. I finally tore my arm from her grasp and bolted toward the door. I hurled myself against it, desperately pawing at the doorknob while my heart beat like a drum in my chest. Every ounce of logic told me to scream, but I couldn't find my voice. It was as if the air had thickened, stealing my breath. The door swung open and I tumbled into the hall. My instincts screamed at me to keep moving. I dashed toward the staircase, the old floorboards creaking under my hurried steps. I glanced back, half expecting to see her right there, a sinister grin plastered across her face. But there was only silence, an oppressive hush that felt like bait. I reached the top of the stairs and paused. Time felt suspended as every shadow in the hallway seemed to loom, waiting for me to make my next move. I needed to find safety, any refuge from the horror I had just encountered. I took a deep breath and made for my bedroom, the one place I hoped could form a barrier between me and whatever played in the dark. Closing the door behind me, I locked it with trembling fingers. It was a small security, a thin piece of wood that stood between my world and whatever other darkness existed beyond. I leaned against the door, needing a moment to collect myself. The shadows still danced outside, but I felt protected. For now. But then, my phone buzzed on the nightstand, the shrill sound slicing through the silence like a knife. I hesitated, glancing at the screen. A message. I squinted at the bright light illuminating the words, and my heart sank as I read it. I see you. The innate urge to throw my phone across the room surged up, but I was rooted in place, paralyzed by fear. I looked up, just in time to see something shift in the corner of my eye. My blood ran cold as the closet door creaked open, a mere inch before it stopped, suspended in the air. I held my breath, trying to muster the courage to approach it. A perverse part of me felt I needed to go closer, to confront whatever demon lay behind that thin layer of wood that separated me from the unknown. With every heartbeat, uncertainty bubbled within me. Biting my lip, I edged toward the closet, heart thundering in my chest, vaguely aware of the faint humming returning, filling the space with its haunting tune. Whatever it was, it wanted me. I reached for the door, trembling fingers grazing the handle. This was it. I was about to uncover what had been hiding in the shadows. The air felt charged, heavy with insistent whispers that promised revelations just beyond that door. But before I could pull it open, my phone buzzed again, a second message flashing ominously. Are you coming out to play? In that very moment, I realized I wasn't alone in my own home anymore. I froze. The soft click of the closet door settling seemed to echo in the stillness of my room. My heart raced as I backed away, eyes locked on the narrow opening, waiting for something to emerge. The humming had grown softer, but still wrapped around me, a lullaby meant to lull me into submission. My phone buzzed yet again, a chilling prompt pulling me back from the depths of fear. Don't you want to have fun? With a shuddering breath, I realized that my safety was an illusion. I glanced at the closet, then back at the door, weighing my options. The hairs on the back of my neck stood up. I had to know if she had followed me. I pushed off the wall, moving cautiously toward the quiet of the darkened hallway. Every step felt weighted, my mind racing through all the possible reasons why this was a terrible idea. As I reached the door, I paused. Should I open it? My instincts told me to stay in my room, to lock myself away from whatever darkness lurked beyond. Yet, I needed answers. I couldn't just stay trapped. I turned the knob slowly, cringing at the creaking sound that escaped the hinges. With a sharp breath, I pushed the door open. The hallway stretched out before me, shadowy and still. I stepped into the hallway, the air chilling my skin. I moved quietly, careful not to make a sound that would draw attention to myself. A shiver of fear shot through me when I caught a glimpse of someone, at the end of the hallway. It was a fleeting shadow, but it was there. My breath quickened, and I froze in place. I hadn't imagined it. I wasn't alone. Just as I was about to retreat, I caught a glint of silver reflecting from the moonlight filtering through the windows. A knife glistening ominously, rested on the floor near my bedroom door. Panic surged at the sight, igniting my fight-or-flight response. Why was there a knife here? Who had left it? I considered fleeing back to my room, but the shadow had advanced, creeping toward me. I knew I had to move. I crouched low, following the wall to remain unnoticed, the knife still gleaming softly. As I passed it, I glanced down, only to see a child's drawing, crumpled and torn, half buried in the dust. It depicted a girl, smiling, surrounded by dark figures, their faces twisted into horrifying shapes. My stomach twisted at the sight. This was meant to be a comfort. I looked up in time to see the shadow morph into a more distinct shape. "Let's play," the voice chimed in that same eerie sing-song tone from earlier. My heartbeat roared in my ears as I turned and sprinted back toward my bedroom, the hollow laughter ringing out behind me. I flung myself inside and slammed the door, locking it tight. But as I sank against the door, gasping for breath, my phone buzzed one last time. "You didn't say yes." The reality of those words settled heavily on me. I was far from free. I thought I had found the worst of it, but now I realized it was only leading up to something worse. Someone wanted to play, and I was just getting started. I pressed my back against the door, the wood cool against my skin. My heart raced, drowning out the laughter that faded into the shadows of the hallway. I had no idea who or what was chasing me, but I couldn't stay holed up in my room forever. The knife had left me with more questions than answers. I took a moment to catch my breath. I had to think clearly. I checked my phone again. Still no signal. My mind raced through options: call for help, make a run for it, or face whatever was hunting me. None of those paths felt safe. Glancing around my room, I spotted a heavy flashlight on my dresser. I was near the window, and the rain outside pounded against the glass. If I could see what I was up against, maybe I could figure out how to escape. The shadows in the hallway still felt menacing, and there was no telling if the light would attract whoever was out there. But I needed to know. I crept over to the dresser, trying to keep my movements quiet. The flashlight felt reassuring in my hand. I pointed it toward the door, steeling myself for the worst. I took a deep breath and turned off the light, moving the beam toward the floor. I needed to see what was waiting outside. As I crouched down, my breath hitched in my throat. A shape slipped under my door, a dark silhouette that seemed to pulse with the rhythm of the rain. My hand gripped the flashlight tighter, my knuckles turning white. I had to act fast. Then I remembered. The knife. I could use it as a weapon if I had to. The distance from the dresser to the door felt like a mile. I dashed towards it, snatching the knife from where it lay. I was trembling but didn't have the luxury of fear. I instinctively flicked on the flashlight. The beam cut through the darkness, casting long shadows that danced across my walls. The glow flickered as I aimed it at the door, illuminating the void beyond. The pulse quickened. I lowered myself closer to the floor, hoping for a better angle to see. Suddenly, the shadow stirred again and shifted, moving aside from the door. I blinked, taken aback. It looked almost human? My heart raced again, but desperation pushed me forward. I opened the door a crack, peering into the hallway. What I found shocked me. A girl stood there, drenched from the rain, her eyes wide with fright. But she was no ordinary girl. Her hair was dark and tangled, her clothes torn and splattered with mud. The most unnerving part? She was smiling, an odd, unsettling grin that didn't match her distressed appearance. "What? Who are you?" I stammered, clutching the knife. Her eyes sparkled. "I'm here to play. They said you wanted to play too." My stomach dropped. "Who said?" I couldn't believe the words that were coming out of my mouth. I felt trapped once again. But she was an unexpected presence. I needed to know more. Then, in the back of my mind, I recalled the eerie voice from before. "You didn't say yes." Suddenly, I realized there was more to this girl than innocence. I stepped back, ready to slam the door shut. I didn't want to let my curiosity lead me to another trap. Before I could react, her hand shot out, fingers curling around the edge of the door. "Don't leave me. You have to come with me." I couldn't breathe. My phone buzzed again on the bed. A new message appeared. It's not just a game anymore. I was caught between the girl and the door. What awaited me outside was now a mystery that felt insurmountable. The familiar, haunting laughter returned, echoing through my head. And that's when I heard it. A voice deep and low, announcing my impending doom. What had I gotten myself into? I could barely breathe. The girl's grip was strong, and her smile was chilling. "You don't understand," she said, her voice rising over the sound of the rain. "They can't find us if we move." "Who can't find us?" I shot back, panic clutching at my chest. A glance down the hallway confirmed my fears. It was dark, but I could almost feel eyes watching me from the shadows. She hesitated, her wide eyes darting left and right as if searching for something unseen. Then she leaned in closer, lowering her voice to a whisper. "They're coming for you, but you can't let them catch you. Not like the others." "Others?" The word settled in my stomach like a heavy stone. I forced myself to look her in the eye. "What do you mean?" But she didn't answer. Instead, she pulled the door a little wider, her urgency evident. I had to decide. Either I let this strange girl in, or I slammed the door and faced whatever was lurking outside. I looked back at my phone. The message still glared at me. "It's not just a game anymore." The weight of that sentence felt suffocating. If this was a game, it was one I had never agreed to join. Finally, my instincts pushed me forward. "Okay, I'll come with you." The moment I said it, fear prickled every inch of me. Who knew what I was stepping into? She beamed, her expression shifting to something almost ecstatic. "Good, follow me." She turned, and I hesitated only a second before tagging along behind her as she dashed down the hallway. We hurried past shadows that loomed larger than life. The rain's rhythm against the windows turned into a chaotic symphony, masking my frantic heartbeat. I clenched the knife tightly, ready. She stopped at the end of the hallway, glancing over her shoulder. "This way." The girl pointed toward the back door that led outside. I didn't like the thought of going out in the storm, but she sounded panicked. "Wait, where are we going?" I asked as I followed her through the door. "Closer to safety. If you stay in one place too long, they'll find you." The wind whipped against us as we stepped into the downpour. I squinted through the sheets of rain, trying to get my bearings. Trees swayed violently, casting ominous shadows on the ground. That's when I saw it. A flicker of movement in the distance, an unnatural shape darting through the trees. My stomach twisted. "Go!" the girl shouted, pushing me forward as she clutched my arm. We ran toward the cover of the trees, but I couldn't shake the feeling we were being watched. I pulled my flashlight from my pocket, its beam cutting through the rain. And that's when I saw it. Another silhouette creeping toward us low to the ground. My heart dropped. "What is that?" "I told you they're here," she screamed, dragging me deeper into the woods. Adrenaline surged through me, but fear was hot on its heels. We had to get away. Whatever was out there was closing in fast. It didn't help that the shadows were multiplying. My mind raced as I tried to remember what the girl had said. "Who are they? What do they want?" She pulled me along until we reached a small clearing. "We're safe here," she exclaimed, but the panic behind her eyes told me otherwise. Then everything went dark. The flashlight flickered and died, leaving us to face the void of the night. A low growl echoed all around us, sending my heart racing again. And suddenly, I realized this was no game. I was in real danger, and I had no idea how to escape. The darkness swallowed us whole. I could barely make out the girl's silhouette beside me, her face a mask of fear. The growl faded, replaced by an unsettling silence that wrapped around us like a thick fog. "What now?" I whispered, my voice trembling. The darkness felt alive, pressing in on all sides. "Just stay quiet," she said, her breath quickening. "They can hear us. We can't let them find us." Panic laced her words, making the situation all the more real. I strained my ears, listening for any signs of movement. The rain continued to pour, but it felt like a distant memory now, drowned out by the pounding of my own heart. A cracking branch broke the stillness, and I flinched. "Don't move!" she hissed, grabbing my arm tightly. I felt her nails digging into my skin, but I didn't dare pull away. Then, there it was again, A low, guttural sound. It seemed closer this time, moving stealthily through the underbrush. My instincts kicked in. I couldn't just stand still. "What do you see?" I whispered, trying to see through the claustrophobic blackness. "Nothing," she snapped. "But it's out there. I can feel it." My phone buzzed suddenly, lighting up the darkness with its glow. I fumbled to silence it, but the brief flash revealed something in the corner of my vision. A shadow, something hunched and warped, creeping along the tree line. My breath hitched in my throat. "Did you see that?" I barely managed to croak out. "Shh," she demanded. "Don't draw attention." I swallowed hard, feeling sweat trickle down my back. The message from before jolted back to my mind. It's not just a game anymore. How right that was. I was in the middle of something far beyond what I could understand. The small clearing suddenly felt more like a trap. "We need to move," I urged. "There's nowhere to hide here." "Fine, but we have to be careful." She lowered her voice, urgency knitting her brows together. "If we move, we have to stick to the trees. They can't get us if we stay hidden." I nodded, though my fear felt like a weight on my chest. We edged away from the clearing, working our way deeper into the woods. Every sound became magnified, the rustling leaves, the drip of rain down the branches. We moved cautiously, but then I heard it again, a snarl that pierced the night. It was closer now, almost right on top of us. My pulse raced. "Wait," the girl said, stopping abruptly. "We have to find a spot to hide." Then, out of the corner of my eye, I caught a glimpse of something shimmering in the underbrush. I bent down, heart racing, and pulled aside some leaves. A small metallic object caught the beam from my dead flashlight. A compass. "What is it?" she whispered, glancing anxiously into the shadows. "It's a compass," I said slowly, trying to catch my breath. Maybe it could help us find our way out. But before I could think further, the growl returned, closer than ever. Fear flooded my veins. "We need to run," I cried. I shoved the compass into my pocket, knowing I wouldn't have time to figure this out now. The shadows were closing in, and whatever was lurking out there was not far behind. Together we dashed into the thick of the trees, breathless and desperate, realizing the night was only getting worse. We sprinted deeper into the woods, the rain making the ground slippery beneath our feet. Every so often a branch would snap, and I was certain that whatever was chasing us was right behind, breathing down our necks. "Over there," she pointed to a cluster of bushes. "It looks dense enough to hide in." Without a second thought, we dove into the greenery, limbs scratching against the coarse branches and wet leaves. We huddled together, trying to slow our breaths, straining to listen. The sounds of the night felt alive. Creatures scuttled about, and I could swear I felt the presence of something large prowling nearby. "Do you think it saw us?" I whispered, my heart racing again like it was about to burst. "I don't know. We just have to stay quiet," she replied, her voice steady, though I could see the fear in her eyes. From our hiding spot, we waited. Time felt distorted, dragging on forever. Every sound became a trigger, and I flinched at every rustle of the wind. Just when I thought I might burst from anxiety, I heard it. The growl returned, echoing through the trees louder and more menacing. My guts tightened. "It's right there," I breathed. "What do we do?" She clutched my arm. "We'll have to wait it out, stay low." But the growling seemed to be circling. It wasn't moving away. My instincts screamed at me to run. But where could we go? My thoughts flickered back to the compass in my pocket. I pulled it out, hoping it would somehow help guide us. "What's that?" she asked, glancing at the device. "It's a compass. I found it back there," I replied, my voice shaky. "Maybe it can show us where we are, or at least where we should go next." But as I held it up, I noticed something strange. The needle whirled erratically before settling, pointing directly behind us. "That can't be right," I frowned, looking at her. "Why would it point that way?" "Maybe it's broken," she suggested, but her eyes were wide with worry. Then I heard the growl again, this time mixed with something else. A low, unnerving sound, almost like laughter. My pulse quickened. What was out there? Why did it seem to toy with us? "I think we should move," she said softly. "If it's not leaving, we need to find another way out." I nodded, tucking the compass back into my pocket. As we prepared to exit our hiding place, the growling stopped. Silence flooded in, thick and unsettling. "Where did it go?" I whispered, glancing around the dark trees, half expecting it to leap at us any moment. "I don't know," she said, her face pale. "But we need to be careful. It could be waiting for us to—" Suddenly a loud rustling erupted nearby. Before we could react, something shot out from the underbrush, racing past us at incredible speed. My heart dropped. "Go!" she yelled, and we bolted again, adrenaline fueling our every step. The growl roared back to life, echoing in the darkness, chasing us relentlessly. That's when I slipped, falling hard against the wet ground. I felt a sharp pain in my wrist, but barely had time to process it. I looked up just in time to see the shadow emerge from the trees, its eyes glinting in the dim light. I froze, my breath hitching in my throat. Then, everything went dark. I awoke again, but this time the rain had stopped and the air felt surprisingly calm. I pushed myself up, wincing at the sharp pain radiating from my wrist. The girl was beside me, eyes wide with relief, and I could see we were now in a clearing surrounded by trees. "You're awake," she exclaimed, brushing wet hair from her face. "What happened?" My voice still trembled, a cruel reminder of the terror that had enveloped us seconds earlier. "I don't know. I think we lost it, at least for now." Her eyes darted around the clearing. "But we need to find a way out. It could come back any second." I glanced around, searching for any signs of the shadows. The eerie calm did nothing to ease my anxiety. "But how? We keep running and it keeps finding us. Maybe we should go back to your place." Her expression soured. "We can't go back. It wouldn't stop until it finds you." The panic in her voice shot through me. I swallowed hard. The fear coursing through my veins reminded me this wasn't just an ordinary night. "What do you mean by, 'it finds me'? Why is this happening?" Each question came out in a rush, frustration mixing with desperation. "I told you. They can sense you. You have to understand it's all part of their game. And if you let one in—" She paused, swallowing hard. "You can't escape." The gravity of her words hit me like a hammer. My mind raced back to the knife, the messages. Taken together, they felt like threads hinting at a far more sinister weave that had entrapped me. Suddenly, my phone buzzed again. I clenched my jaw, trying to ignore it, but dread pooled in the pit of my stomach. I fished it out reluctantly and saw the message. "I can taste your fear." "Who's that from?" she asked, eyes wide with alarm. "I don't know, but it's not normal." Her gaze flicked to the trees. "Show them you aren't afraid. It feeds off of that. It thrives in the darkness of fear." I wanted to argue, but a growl broke through the silence echoing around us. It was closer this time, jagged and menacing. I could feel the vibrations of its presence looming like a storm cloud over the clearing. "What do we do?" "We have to run," I said, panic clawing at my chest. "No, stay where you are," she urged, crouching down low beneath the thick foliage of the trees. "It's searching for us. If we move, we'll be caught." The growl faded, but the tension in the air intensified, wrapping around us like a steel band. My breath quickened. "We can't just sit here. We'll—" "Shh!" Her hand shot out, pressing against my mouth. "Listen. If it knows you're scared, it'll find you." I did my best to breathe deeply, focusing on pushing away the fear. Seconds felt like hours, each heartbeat echoing with my anxieties. In that moment, it occurred to me. The game they played wasn't just about chasing. It thrived on the emotions, feeding off my unease. Just when the silence felt suffocating, the shadow surged back into view, carving through the trees before skidding to a halt almost directly in front of us. Its form was indistinct, distorted against the moonlight, but the way it loomed sent an icy wave racing down my spine. "Don't move," the girl whispered, squeezing my hand. It snuffled the air, and I could feel its gaze scanning the clearing, lingering where we crouched. For a moment, I was convinced it could smell the fear wafting off of me like a blanket. Then something unexpected happened. A hazy memory flickered back of the doll, the message tied around its wrist. "I'm near, just turn around." I shook my head violently, forcing myself to remember who I was, the reality beyond this chaos. The shadows may want to consume my fear, twist it into something treacherous, but I wasn't powerless. Taking a silent breath, I turned toward the mass of darkness, pushing back the fear that threatened to eclipse me entirely. "You don't scare me," I said aloud, my voice steadier than I felt. "I won't play your game." The shadow froze, a moment of confusion hanging in the air. I looked at the girl. She stared wide-eyed in disbelief. The growl morphed into a growl laugh, distorted and sharp, reverberating through the night. But it didn't move. Trapped by my words, the creature hesitated, revealing a moment of vulnerability. "Now!" the girl shouted, breaking the tension. I sprung into action, grabbing her arm as we bolted toward the edge of the clearing, ready to evade its pursuit. I felt the wind at our backs, freedom almost tangible as we ran. The growling echoed behind us, frantic and angry, but we pushed forward, fueled by the sheer urgency to escape. We sprinted into the forest, darting between tree trunks, as the shadows seemed to blend together, swirling in pursuit. The short distance to the tree line felt expansive. We had just a few moments before I'd feel its breath at my heels, but there was still an edge of lack. Even as we fled, doubt gnawed at me. Why had we been spared? What could hold that entity back? The deeper questions hung heavily in the air, veiled in darkness. "Do you think it's gone?" I panted, glancing back, but I could still feel it lurking nearby. "I don't know, just keep running," she urged, dragging me into the underbrush. Just then, my phone lit up again, the screen illuminating our path momentarily in the suffocating darkness. "You think you can escape?" read the new message, and I stumbled over roots, heart racing. "Keep going," she shouted, desperation clear. This was just a game, I thought, a nightmarish echo. And yet as we barreled deeper into the night, the weight of uncertainty crushed against my chest. As we escaped the shadows, I realized I would never truly know if the darkness was supernatural or simply a reflection of my inner turmoil. We kept running, but strangeness hugged the night. It felt like an endless loop. No matter how far we fled, the weight of ambiguity loomed just out of reach, haunting us under the veil of darkness. There were no answers yet, but for now, I clung to hope. I had escaped, but whatever the night held in waiting could always loom just beyond the edge. As we broke through the tree line, I glanced back over my shoulder, heart pounding. The shadows receded like an ebbing tide, trailing into obscurity. I wanted to believe we were safe, but the final question lingered, clawing at me. What had I truly escaped?